Linda arrives at her workplace, Preston Strategic Solutions, where she works as a manager in the strategic planning division. Her co-worker Donovan asks about the company report, and she hands it to him, explaining that she made sure all the indexes match next year's estimated quarterly lease figures. He tells her she's amazing. As she follows him toward the meeting room, he mentions that it's only a small meeting and that he's just dropping the file off. He reassures Linda that everyone will know she did all the work. At that moment, two of Linda's co-workers, Chase and River, start talking about going to karaoke after work. Linda tries to join the conversation, saying she could really use a break too, but they ignore her. She then notices Donovan heading into the meeting room and presenting the report to the board members as if he did all the work himself. Later that day, Linda talks to her pet parrot, Sweetie, about what happened at work. She says she's finally going to get promoted to vice president, especially now that her old boss has passed away and his son Bradley is about to take over as president. She even reminds Sweetie that Bradley had flirted with her at the Christmas party last year and excitedly tells Sweetie that once she gets the promotion, they're going to move into a bigger apartment. Then, Linda turns on the television to watch her favorite reality show, Survivor. The next day, Bradley is officially introduced as the new president of the company. Linda approaches him and introduces herself, reminding him that they had met at the Christmas party last year. He simply nods. She then apologizes for his father's passing, but Bradley barely listens. Instead, he's distracted by a small piece of food stuck under her lip. After a moment, he excuses himself and walks away. While the executive officer, Franklin, is explaining a merger situation, Bradley suddenly notices a small bit of food on his hand, clearly transferred from Linda earlier. He asks Franklin to smell it, but Franklin immediately refuses. Bradley insists, so Franklin reluctantly smells it and says, "Tuna fish, what a disgusting woman," Bradley mutters under his breath. Franklin tells Bradley that his father had promised Linda a promotion to vice president. Bradley casually replies that the job is going to Donovan instead. Franklin tells him that Linda is a real workhorse and that his father depended on her for everything, but Bradley still refuses to change his decision. He even suggests moving her far away because she makes him sick. Franklin then brings up the massive merger deal in Bangkok, explaining that they still haven't resolved the issues in Appendix D. He adds that Donovan won't be able to handle it on his own. Bradley sighs and says they'll use Linda to help Donovan get up to speed, then ship her out. Later, Linda notices Donovan and Bradley laughing together and comments that they seem very close. River tells her it's because Donovan is being promoted to vice president. She also reveals that the two of them were in the same fraternity in college and still play golf together. Furious, Linda marches straight to Bradley's office. Inside, Bradley is in the middle of interviewing a candidate, asking how far and beyond she would be willing to go for him. Linda interrupts him, saying it's urgent and that she needs to speak to him immediately. She confronts him about giving the promotion to Donovan, pointing out that he has only been with the company for 6 months while she has worked there for 7 years. Bradley nods and asks her to sit down, telling her he has seen her work and is impressed by her skill with numbers. But he also says he doesn't see her in an executive position because she doesn't seem like a people person, and that the role requires someone who is charming, well-liked, and even plays golf. He then casually points out that she has something stuck in her teeth. Completely humiliated, Linda starts to break down. Seeing this, Bradley offers her a deal. He asks her to join them on the Bangkok merger trip, and adds that if she can solve the problems in Appendix D, he might reconsider promoting her. Just then, a woman walks in, and Bradley introduces her as his fiancée, Zuri. She smiles awkwardly as he praises Linda as one of their best employees. Then he mentions that he has received complaints about Linda eating strong-smelling foods, like tuna, at her desk, and advises her to use the break room instead. Linda grabs her things and walks out of the office. She quietly tells herself that she is enough just the way she is. A few days later, Linda arrives at a private airfield, ready to depart for the Bangkok merger trip. She cheerfully tells Bradley that she stayed up all night working on Appendix D and may have found a loophole, but he ignores her and simply orders everyone onto the plane. As Linda continues working on Appendix D during the flight, Donovan plays one of Linda's old audition tapes for the Survivor program. In the video, Linda talks about how she knows 3 different ways to start a fire and how much she loves nature. Linda takes off her earphones and hears everyone laughing at her. Shaking with anger, she quickly deletes the file. At that moment, the plane suddenly hits heavy turbulence. The flight attendant shouts for everyone to fasten their seatbelts.
Take your seats. You're a fucking pussy.
Moments later, the cabin begins to depressurize, and a hole tears open in one of the windows. Linda quickly offers her hand to Donovan to help him, but he demands her seat and tries to strangle her. Thinking fast, Linda grabs a fork and stabs him. Donovan's tie then gets stuck in the door, and he begs Linda to help him. This time, she ignores him. Seconds later, the plane crashes into the sea. As the cabin fills with water, Linda manages to free her seatbelt and swims to the surface. Eventually, she loses consciousness. The next day, Linda wakes up on a remote island after being washed ashore by the waves. After hours of walking, she comes across Bradley, lying unconscious on the sand. She checks him for injuries and discovers a deep wound on his leg. Knowing they need a place to rest, she sets up a small camp. First, she gathers banana and coconut leaves and ties them together with a vine to make a shelter. As the storm begins to roll in, she digs a hole and sets banana leaves over coconut shells to catch water. The storm continues through the night. The next morning, Bradley finally wakes up coughing. At the same time, Linda is drinking the water she collected. When she notices he's awake, she brings him some water as well. Still weak, Bradley asks what happened to the others. Linda quietly tells him that none of them survived. He whispers Donovan's name, but she shakes her head. Bradley then asks how long he has been unconscious. Linda tells him it's been about a day and a half. He looks at her gratefully and thanks her for taking care of him. Linda manages to start a fire and immediately jumps up and down with excitement. Later, she brings Bradley some fish, but he refuses to eat it. Still, she insists, telling him that it will help him regain his strength. For the first time in her life, Linda begins to feel peaceful, far away from the constant stress and chaos of her daily routine. The following morning, Linda excitedly tells Bradley she found a conch shell, and now they can eat the delicious snail inside. Bradley then asks how long she thinks they'll be stuck there. Linda shrugs and says they are probably somewhere in the Gulf of Thailand and must have drifted several miles after the crash. He asks whether she has tried making a distress signal, like arranging bamboo sticks on the sand to spell out help. Linda laughs and says she hasn't had time to think about that because she has been busy keeping them alive. Bradley dismisses her efforts and asks if she's on the lookout for the GPS or any equipment that might have washed ashore from the plane. Linda just stares at him. Then he orders her to focus on getting them rescued. Not playing the perfect homemaker, Linda fires back, pointing out that if it weren't for her, he wouldn't even be alive right now. He scoffs, and when he tries to move, he realizes he still can't use his leg. As Linda tries to help him, he snaps at her, warning her not to touch him.
Very soft baby hands.
Annoyed, he demands that she speak to him with respect. Without saying another word, Linda gathers a few things and walks away. He calls after her, asking where she's going and mockingly teasing her not to take his delicious snail food. He waits for her to return, but a full day passes, and she still hasn't come back. Desperate, he begins shouting for water. That night, violent winds tear through the area, ripping apart the shelter. The next day, Linda finally returns and gives him some water. She reminds him that they are not in the office anymore. Later, Linda tells Bradley that she found tracks that look like they belong to a wild boar. She prepares a spear so she can hunt it and get them food that would last a week.
Are you gonna hunt a boar?
Linda corrects
Linda
him.
from accounting?
Strategic and planning. Bradley mutters, whatever. She reminds him that he should have known exactly what department she worked in, especially after claiming her work impressed him before giving the promotion to someone else. Bradley shrugs, saying that sometimes a boss has to make tough calls.
Save it.
She heads into the forest to track the boar. Suddenly, it charges toward her, and she runs and hides. When the boar gets distracted, she drops down and drives the spear straight into it. Then she casually tells Bradley that she actually enjoys hunting. That night, Linda cooks the boar, and they finally enjoy a proper meal. Bradley admits it tastes amazing, and Linda nods in agreement before bursting into laughter. Curious, Bradley asks what's so funny. She jokes that while he was sitting there like a lump on a log, she was the one bringing home the bacon. The next day, Linda explores the forest and discovers a clean source of fresh water. She takes a quick bath, and just as she's about to leave, she notices a boat in the distance. She almost calls out for help, but then stops herself and quietly mutters, "Not yet." She returns to the camp and tells Bradley that she found a new freshwater source. Annoyed, Bradley asks how they still haven't been rescued, pointing out that it has already been 2 weeks. Linda simply shrugs and says that the #1 rule for human survival is maintaining a positive attitude. He snaps, saying they need to build a raft or do something to get off the island. Linda shakes her head and says that could be an option, but only as a last resort. She adds that they already have food, water, and shelter, and asks him if the island is really that bad since they also have each other for company. Bradley replies that this is the last place he wants to be.
Haven't I taken good care of you?
He asks her to take a look at his sunburned skin and bluntly tells Linda that this might be her kind of life, but it's not his. She warns him to be careful, but he snaps, insisting she has no right to tell him what to do. He even adds that he is the CEO of the Next 500 Gen company. Linda mocks him, saying, "A company your father built."
Yeah, you're so fired.
Furious, Bradley fires her on the spot and decides to build his own camp. He limps away and tries to gather sticks to build a shelter, but it collapses almost immediately. He then tries to start a fire, but it suddenly begins to rain. He quickly tries to collect some water, but the rain stops just as suddenly. The next morning, Linda greets Bradley and points out that he spelled the word help as heeple. Starving and exhausted, Bradley spots an insect. He grabs it and tries to eat it, but immediately spits it out in disgust. Finally, swallowing his pride, he walks over to Linda.
Linda, is that you? I think we met at the Christmas party last year.
She smiles and casually points out that he has something stuck in his teeth. He then compliments the food she has prepared and then notices the knife. Curious, he asks where she got it. Linda tells him she came across it washed ashore. After a moment of silence, Bradley sighs and apologizes for the way he treated her, both on the island and back at the office. "So, I'm not fired?" Linda asks. He shakes his head and admits that without someone like her, the company would fall apart. He even compliments her, saying she looks completely different from the nervous person who walked into his office that day. Linda then asks him if he is finally willing to admit that he underestimated her. Bradley nods and quietly asks if he can come back to her camp and learn from her. She tells him to sit down. He admits she made it all look easy, but he quickly learned it wasn't and promises to help her from now on. After thinking for a moment, Linda asks him how far and beyond he would be willing to go for her. Bradley immediately starts taking off his shirt, but she quickly stops him, saying she was just joking and that she isn't like him. She then tells him to eat. Linda then takes Bradley to her favorite lookout on a high ridge above the water. When they reach the top, she helps him carefully cross a narrow gap, and once they're safely across, she begins teaching him a few survival rules. She explains never to eat berries that are yellow, green, or white, and if he's ever unsure, he can test them on his skin first to check if they're poisonous. She gestures at the two rocks that form an X, warning him that part of the island is dangerous, full of poisonous vines and thorns, and that he should steer clear. As they begin heading back, Bradley asks her if they can stop for a moment because he needs to catch his breath. Linda agrees, but suddenly the rocks beneath her feet give way. Bradley quickly grabs her hand and pulls her back up. Linda thanks him. Later, Linda tosses some bananas around the fire, explaining that the heat turns starch into sugar. Bradley tastes them and says they're amazing. Linda smiles and tells him she also made something called pruno. When Bradley looks confused, she explains that it's basically fermented fruit that people in prison make to get drunk. That night, they drink the pruno together. Bradley compliments it, saying it actually tastes really good. "Thank you, sweetie," Linda replies, then quickly apologizes and adds that Sweetie is the name of her pet parrot, and she misses her. Bradley laughs and asks if she lives alone, with only a bird for company. Linda then reveals that she was actually married for 10 years. Bradley asks if she got divorced, but she quietly corrects him and says her husband died. He apologizes, but she tells him not to, adding that he wasn't a good person and didn't really know how to love. Bradley admits he understands what that feels like. He says his parents never really loved each other. His father was never around, and his mother was abusive, though he doesn't blame her because her own father was terrible. She then comments that people like Bradley aren't born monsters. They're made. Bradley simply smirks. He then asks her if she ever thought about leaving her husband. Linda admits she thought about it every single day but didn't because she was afraid of ending up alone. When Bradley asks how her husband died, Linda says it was a car accident. She explains that he had a drinking problem, and whenever he drank, she used to hide the car keys. But one day the fight got so bad that he did terrible things to her when she refused to give him the keys. In the end, she handed them over and poured him his last drink. She quietly admits that she has never told this story to anyone before. After a moment of silence, she says that maybe they shouldn't even leave this island. The next morning, Linda wakes up with a terrible headache. In the distance, she sees Bradley bathing in the sea. Soon, a violent storm begins tearing through their camp. Realizing they can't stay there any longer, Linda quickly leads him toward a secluded cave, leaving everything behind. Shivering badly, Bradley says it's freezing and asks her to come closer to him for body heat. Sometime later, Linda wakes up and returns to their camp, only to find that it has been completely destroyed. She then tells Bradley what happened. blaming herself for building it too close to the shore. Bradley says it's okay and suggests they can rebuild it again, this time on higher ground. He also tells her his leg is getting better and that he can finally help. So the two of them start building a new camp together. When Bradley asks for the knife, Linda tells him he should learn how to do it without one. He nods and says he's going to take a short walk to the high ridge because his leg feels stiff. Linda also joins him. Bradley thanks her for teaching him how to survive on the island and says that the time he has spent there hasn't been wasted. Linda says she feels the same way. Bradley offers to make dinner so she can take a break from the kitchen for once. Linda smiles and agrees. Night falls, and while Linda adjusts her clothes, Bradley serves a surprisingly delicious meal. When she tastes it, she's genuinely impressed and says it's wonderful. She asks him if he knows how to cook, but he shakes his head and says that back home, they either ordered food or had a chef cook for them.
Ouch, you and your fiance. You must miss her.
Bradley quietly nods. Suddenly, Linda starts feeling dizzy and collapses to the ground. Bradley immediately grabs the raft he has secretly been building in the bushes, along with some supplies, and tries to escape on his own. He manages to survive the first strong wave. However, the waves quickly overpower him and he is dragged underwater. Linda rushes into the water and pulls him back to shore, all while she is still vomiting from the poison. The next day, Bradley admits that he tried to poison her. Surprisingly, Linda calmly tells him she already knew. She explains that the food tasted bitter, but she never thought he would actually do something like that. She also points out that it would take far more poisonous berries to kill a person. Then, Linda gives him some fried octopus. Bradley offers some to her as well, but she refuses, saying her stomach still feels queasy. She then tells Bradley that she understands how difficult it must be for him to no longer be in control. However, she also makes it clear that things are about to change. She says it may be hard for him to take orders from her and depend on her for survival, but that is the reality now. Suddenly, Bradley realizes that he can't move. That's when Linda calmly reveals the truth. She fed him a blue-ringed octopus whose neurotoxins block the transmission of nerve signals in the body. She then points out the flaws in the raft he built and tells him that if he really wanted it to survive the waves, he should have secured it with stronger double-floor lashing. Linda calmly reassures him that the toxin will only last a few hours. But during that time, he won't be able to move or feel anything. And she says that might actually be better, considering what's about to happen. She then tells him a story from her childhood about a naughty dog she once had that kept wandering off. Her father told her it wasn't the dog's fault. It just needed to be fixed. Linda coldly tells him that no help is coming and that he needs to accept it, reminding him that he is no longer the boss and is now at the bottom of the food chain. Bradley panics when he sees blood, only to realize it's just a rat. Linda warns him not to mistake her kindness for weakness, because next time it won't be a rat. For the next 2 days, Bradley refuses to talk to her. Linda tries to lighten the mood and even asks him to at least give her a smile. Then she tells him she knows something that will cheer him up, some juicy fruits, and goes to bring them. But just a few minutes later, Linda suddenly hears the sound of a boat engine.
Linda!
Zuri runs toward her and hugs her tightly. She immediately asks if Bradley is alive, and Linda tells her that he is. Zuri explains that even after the official search in the area was called off, she didn't give up. She hired her own boat and continued searching for him. She then asks Linda to take her to Bradley. Linda nods. On the way, she casually asks if it's just the two of them or if a rescue team is waiting somewhere nearby. The boat captain tells her it's just them. Linda nods and leads them toward the high ridge, saying it's a shortcut. Zuri cheerfully says that Linda must be excited to get back to her normal life. Linda doesn't reply. Instead, she says she needs to tie her laces and asks Zuri to walk ahead. The captain and Zuri beg Linda to help. Sometime later, Linda returns to the camp, drops the bag on the ground, and quietly lies down inside the shelter without saying a word. After some time, Bradley tells her that he saw fresh boat tracks nearby and that they should go check them out. But Linda simply replies that she is taking a sick day. That night, Linda suddenly wakes up after hearing someone screaming. She looks toward the shore and sees Zuri crawling out of the sea. Zuri accuses her of trying to kill her and calls her a murderer, but it turns out to be just a nightmare. The next morning, Bradley prepares to hunt a wild boar. He holds his weapon and quietly moves through the forest, but he accidentally steps on a branch, which scares the animal away. As he looks ahead, he notices something buried in the sand. When he looks closer, he sees a diamond ring on it, Realizing it belongs to Zuri, he breaks down and starts screaming. He runs back to the camp and confronts Linda, demanding to know if she killed Zuri. Linda calmly says that Zuri slipped while she was trying to help her reach him. Bradley yells at her, asking why she didn't tell him earlier. Linda replies that he wouldn't have believed her anyway. He insists that he still doesn't believe her, and she swears it was an accident. Bradley then coldly snaps, "Just like your husband's death was an accident?" Furious, Linda reaches for the knife, but Bradley has already taken it. She immediately runs into the forest to escape, and he chases her. A brutal struggle follows. Bradley manages to tear out a handful of Linda's hair while she bites him and fights back. In the end, Linda grabs a rock and strikes him with it. Bradley starts laughing hysterically. Linda then opens her mouth and reveals Zuri's diamond ring and swallows it. Enraged, Bradley attacks her again, but she grabs the knife and stabs him. He manages to escape and runs straight into the part of the island Linda had warned him not to enter, where he discovers a luxurious mansion. He starts shouting for help, but no one answers. Desperate, he opens the door and rushes inside. He searches for a knife, but suddenly, he hears Linda's voice through the speaker. She calmly tells him that she has already thrown them all away, except for one. Then she laughs, asking how he could ever believe a knife would just wash ashore.
It's amazing, the things that just wash up on shore.
Linda then reveals the truth, mentioning that the mansion belongs to a billionaire. The first thing she did after getting in was turn off the security, something the owner never even noticed. She also admits that they could have been rescued a long time ago, but she wasn't ready to leave yet. She explains that after the caretakers left the mansion, she broke in after memorizing the security code. She also tells him the food she had been bringing him all this time was actually from the mansion. And Linda admits that she truly enjoyed spending time with him, even calling him her new sweetie. But she admits that what happened afterward wasn't planned, suggesting that maybe it was fate that only the two of them survived. She appears in front of him with a shotgun she found in the mansion, telling him that things could have turned out very differently between them. Bradley admits he was a terrible person who treated everyone badly. He says the island, and her, changed him, then begs for a second chance, declaring his love and suggesting they could stay on the island together forever. But suddenly, Linda notices that a showpiece is missing its curved horn. Before she can react, Bradley attacks her. Linda quickly grabs a golf club on the wall. Bradley manages to grab the shotgun and pulls the trigger, but it doesn't fire because it has no bullets. Linda strikes him hard with the golf club and finally kills him. Linda, now the president of Preston Solutions, appears at a celebrity golf tournament 1 year after surviving a plane crash. A reporter introduces her as a real-life survivor, the only person rescued from the middle of the sea. The reporter asks her again how she managed to survive. Linda calmly replies that the memories of her lost colleagues are what kept her going. When asked how she feels about her book, a bestseller based on her experience, being turned into a movie, Linda says she's happy. She also reveals that she is planning to write her next book, a self-help book, because she wants people to understand one thing.
No help is coming. So you better start saving yourself.